All right, Donald Trump, this message is for you. Look, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. But let me tell you something. You need to do better as a president. You want to be a president? You want to be a leader? You need to stop calling women pigs. You need to stop being so nasty to human beings. You need to start respecting the office that you serve. And better yet, even though I didn't vote for you, you need to start doing a better job for me and everyone else. Because at the end of the day, let me tell you something, Mr. President. You work for me. You work for the American people that voted.
Could Afton Bain of Tennessee win her special election on December 2nd? You bet your ass she could. And if you're from Tennessee, I want to hear from you because this is a district that was plus 22 for Trump. And you know what Donald Trump and JD Vance are having to do right now? They're having to take their time and go on their social media platforms and stump for the Republican nominee because this, although a plus 22, shows Afton Bain is only down 2 in a recent Emerson poll. And this is huge news. There's so many anecdotal stories and things like that. Oh, my neighbor took down my Trump flag and oh, this, that, and the other. We saw a lot of proof of tides turning in November when these elections went Democrats' way. And if this goes the Democrats' way, this would be huge. Even if Afton Bain gets close, even if she closes that gap to 6, 5, 4 points, whatever, going from a plus 22 to a plus whatever, or possibly winning, let's think positively. That would be monumental and shows that this administration is an absolute dumpster fire. The fact that they're having to put money into this race on the GOP side to push the Republican candidate past Bain, that is absolutely crazy. So if you're from Tennessee, I want to hear from you. If you support the Democrats and Afton Bain and her candidacy to go into the House and continue to strike down this razor-thin margin in the House, I want to hear from you as well because I think she could do it.
All right, folks, check this out. Donald Trump just gave an insane and disgusting speech on the tragedy we saw in Washington, D.C. today, where 2 National Guardsmen were shot in broad daylight by a crazy person. And it seems like the prediction I made in previous videos talking about the story appears to be coming true. Donald Trump and the Republicans are using this heinous, abhorrent crime to launch more mass deportation campaigns, more National Guardsmen in Democratic cities across the country, and more. He kind of laid out what he's planning to do in this speech tonight, and it's something that you need to hear because it seems like things are about to get very bad, even worse than the moment we're already in. So look, we're going to hear from Donald Trump, take a listen to some of these clips because nobody wants to listen to a full Trump speech. Before we do any of that, make sure to subscribe down below, drop a like on the video, comment, let me know what you think about this story, and then let's just start here with this clip where Donald Trump outlines the single greatest national security threat facing our nation. And what do you know? He blames immigrants. Just take a look.
Disastrous president, the worst in the history of our country. This attack underscores the single greatest national security threat facing our nation. The last administration let in 20 million unknown and unvetted foreigners from all over the world, from places that you don't want to even know about. No country can tolerate such a risk to our very survival. An example is Minnesota, where hundreds of thousands of Somalians are ripping off our country and ripping apart that once great state. Billions of dollars are lost, and gangs of Somalians come from a country that doesn't even have a government, no laws, no water, no military, no nothing.
Well, there Donald Trump goes again. In the most unsurprising turn of events, Donald Trump is blaming an entire group of people for this crime today, for crime generally. He says there are gangs being run out of Minnesota by Somalia. It is disgusting what Donald Trump is doing here. It is racist, it's xenophobic, but also it's entirely false, of course. I mean, this is a...
Well, if you missed it, Criminal illegal alien mother of White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt's nephew nabbed by ICE. I saw this headline, and my first thought was, wow, it's going to be a little awkward at the Thanksgiving dinner table this year. Now, you may see this and think, oh, finally, someone with this administration is going to have to experience what so many families across the country are experiencing leading into the holidays, where their loved ones have been taken away, and it's awkward, and people are sad and don't want to celebrate things. Only that doesn't seem to be the case here, because there were little things right away that made me go, oh, I don't think that's what this is. The woman in question, she was with Caroline's brother, and they have a child together. And he was, of course, reached out to for comment about this. And his response was, the only concern has always been the safety, well-being, and privacy of my son. I was like, oh, you don't seem to care that his mother got locked up? Turns out he has sole custody of his son. And it sounds like she hasn't been involved or has been kept away in some way. And then there's more than a few people online who were implying that Caroline Leavitt had something to do with her getting picked up. I'm not saying that. I've seen nothing to support that. But she was picked up, and she is facing deportation. And it doesn't sound like Caroline Leavitt is going to intervene in any way. Yeah, all Caroline's reps had to say was the women haven't spoken in many years. I'll say this. Regardless of how involved she is or isn't in her son's life, if she is deported, that little boy will one day be a man. And he's going to be looking into all the reasons that his mother perhaps wasn't there and what was the deal with his mother. If he makes connections to Caroline, probably not going to be his favorite aunt. I don't think you really care about anything outside the scope of your own little purview of what you see in the moment based on how you conduct yourself all the time. Always. But those chickens, they come home to roost.
I think one of the reasons why Trump and his administration were trying to restrict like welfare and government assistance benefits, stuff like that. I think people are just assuming that he just hates like poor people and stuff like that. Rather, if that's true, I can't tell you. But I think that one of the things that I've recently found out is that there's a lot of illegal immigrants who are taking advantage of the system. And so it's very difficult to kind of like make that, I guess, that separation of like, you know, there's only so many rules that you can put in place that will only affect people who are trying to take advantage of the system. It's really a slippery slope. So, you know, there's people who, like I heard that there's, certain communities, won't say what, but you'll know who I'm talking about, who are allowed to marry up to 4 women, and they are, they're not actually married by American standards, but by their standards, they're married, and they live in different households, and they collect welfare for each household, and each one of these women are having children. And so that puts a huge strain on the financial system, on the welfare system, or on the taxpayers, the taxpayers' money paying for this kind of stuff. And so when you have that kind of that much fraud and that much people who are getting thousands of dollars every single month in taxpayer money to basically sit on their ass and have babies, that's a problem. And I think that I would say that that's probably one of the main reasons why Trump was like trying to put some stop to it. But the thing is, when you do that, you also hurt people who are actually on the system because they need to be on it. So making that differentiation is going to be very hard, because there is a lot of people who are taking advantage of the system, especially illegal immigrants. Both illegal and legal immigrants who are on the welfare system, putting a huge strain on our finances. And then also just having people who actually do need it, people who are disabled, people who are just, I don't know, for whatever reason they can't work. So I don't know, y'all. I just wanted to say that because I don't necessarily think it's always so cut and dry.
I don't care that he was an Afghan. It doesn't fucking matter. Don't let them change the subject. The Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump, wanted this to happen. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he wanted this to happen. The Republican governor of West Virginia deployed troops to an American city for a fake crisis, just like Governor Abbott of Texas and all of the rest of these Republican governors who are using their troops to occupy other cities out of other states. By deploying the National Guard throughout the United States, they are creating tens of thousands of soft targets for foreign adversaries, for domestic extremists, and for nihilistic, meme-inspired maniacs who've been the perpetrators of so much violence in this country recently. How do I know they wanted this to happen? Because these are the facts. A judge has already decided that the deployments are illegal. Multiple judges have issued orders telling the president to stand down. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has been working to ensure that all of these troops are armed. Jeanine Pirro, the other Fox News host in the Trump administration, is now the district attorney of Washington, D.C. She has made it clear that she will not prosecute laws on the books about carrying openly in that city. Anyone with two brain cells to rub together can understand why in the capital city of any country, people should not be open carrying. So don't get distracted. Don't let MAGA change the subject. Don't let them try to make this a fight about immigration or refugees or Afghans or the Biden administration. These two soldiers from West Virginia would not be in a hospital right now, but for Donald Trump wanting them to be there. Now, why does he want them to be there? Why does he want troops to get hurt? Because there is no more useful propaganda tool in our culture, in our country, than troops in caskets. Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Pete Hegseth, Pam Bondi, they all know that once troops start getting hurt, they can use more force to strip more Americans, more immigrants of their constitutionally protected rights. Troops are built for war. That is what we are trained for. We are not trained for police actions. They don't want to use us for police actions. They want to use us for war. They want to get us caught in a cycle of the worse things get, the worse they'll make them. They've already responded by saying they're going to deploy an additional 500 troops to Washington, D.C. That's 500 more soft targets for foreign adversaries, for domestic extremists, and for meme-inspired nihilistic maniacs to take advantage of. Because every one of those groups has an incentive to escalate things, to make things worse. But we, the rest of us, we're not powerless. Our democracy is not inherently broken. The things that are bad are not irreparable. What you can do right now, even though it's a holiday, is you can go to fivecalls.org. On there, they have tools that you can use to help you contact your governor, your members of Congress, your senators. All of these people, whether you're in a red state or a blue state, doesn't matter. You should be contacting them, leaving them messages, making sure that they understand that you don't believe it is acceptable to have National Guard troops standing as walking targets for all of the forces in the world that want to destroy our democracy.
Donald Trump and his allies are attempting to reignite Islamophobia in the United States once again. And they are attempting to blame President Joe Biden for this. But here's the facts. The shooter of the two National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. worked for and with the CIA since 2012. They came to the United States in 2021 under Operation Allies Welcome after the United States withdrew from Afghanistan after more than 20 years. Now, that withdrawal was negotiated by Donald Trump, and it forced Joe Biden to withdraw from Afghanistan when he did, under the conditions that he did, because Donald Trump negotiated with the Taliban against his own State Department's wishes and in a manner that left Afghanistan weak and powerless to the Taliban retaking over control, which led to Operation Allies Welcome being implemented to help save individuals from Afghanistan from being thereby targeted from the Taliban when they took over. This individual came to the United States. In 2024, they applied for asylum. And in 2025, Donald Trump's State Department and FBI interviewed, vetted, and cleared this individual. Every single thing about what happened yesterday, including the guardsmen being in Washington, D.C. for political propaganda and stunts, was because of Donald Trump, his first administration and now his second administration. These two individuals should not have been injured. The individual from Afghanistan that pulled the trigger should not have been in the country if it were not for Donald Trump's failed negotiations that led to the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, that led to Operation Allies Welcome, and then led to this individual being granted asylum by his now underfunded, understaffed, and lacking the proper investigative ability because he has reassigned federal agents that would have done the background checks properly to do other things, such as hunt down gardeners and nannies. So Donald Trump is directly responsible, once again, for U.S. citizens being injured because of his own ineptitudes and failures.
The last of President Trump's criminal cases related to the 2020 presidential election is now officially over. That means Trump will not be facing any more charges related to his alleged election interference now or ever. And neither will any of his alleged co-conspirators. That's because just this morning, today, November 26th, a judge in Georgia officially dismissed the Fulton County RICO case President Trump was facing. Now, remember, it all started with this phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, right after the 2020 election.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
But the judge didn't just dismiss this case randomly on his own today. He dismissed the entire case because of this motion filed in Fulton County Superior Court this morning by the prosecutor who took over the case from Fulton County DA Fani Willis. So that's confusing. Let me just back up for a second, because you probably lost track of this case a while ago. So Fani Willis was removed from heading up the prosecution of this RICO case against Trump and 18 of his alleged co-conspirators because of an improper relationship she had with the prosecutor she put in charge of the case. She appealed and was fighting this removal, and finally, in September of this year, the Georgia Supreme Court declined to hear her case. That meant a new prosecutor had to take over. And just less than 2 weeks ago, on November 14th, another prosecutor took over. An unelected, nonpartisan attorney from the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia stepped in, a guy named Peter Skandalakis. And today, Skandalakis filed this motion with the Georgia court, saying after a thorough examination of the case file, he has decided not to move forward with prosecuting this case against Trump or his co-conspirators any further. Now, it's important for you to understand that Skandalakis isn't declining to prosecute because he thinks Trump and his alleged co-conspirators are not guilty. He's not saying they are guilty either. He's just saying he's deciding not to prosecute for several reasons that he details in this 22-page attachment to his court filing. Now, one of the main reasons is because of logistics. Skandalakis says the law prohibits the prosecution of a sitting president of the United States. And since Trump was reelected, he is now the sitting president. So this case logistically cannot move forward. So you may be thinking, but what about when Trump is out of office in 2029? Why can't the prosecution happen then? Well, Skandalakis addresses that too. He says there may be statute of limitation problems because by the time the case actually sees a jury trial, it could be the year 2031. And even then, he says, if it happened then, it would be a remarkable feat. If it happened in 2031, it would be more than 11 years after the alleged misconduct took place. Plus, Skandalakis cited the Supreme Court case that makes presidents immune from criminal prosecution for actions that they may take while conducting the duties of their office. Another reason for not moving forward with this prosecution, according to Skandalakis, is because of what he calls the basic truth. He says that it is not illegal to question or challenge the results of an election, which absolutely is a fact. He talks about all the legal ways in which candidates can challenge the results of an election. He writes that lots of candidates do that. He points to Stacey Abrams' challenge to Brian Kemp's gubernatorial victory in Georgia. He says, likewise, in 2020, many Republicans struggled to accept the reality that President Donald J. Trump did not win the popular vote in Georgia or in other key states and therefore lost the presidential race. He says, struggling to accept reality in this case doesn't necessarily translate to illegal behavior. As for that call with Raffensperger that I shared at the beginning of this video, Skandalakis says the call itself was absolutely concerning, and Trump repeatedly raised unsubstantiated and disproven allegations of voter fraud, but Trump did not explicitly solicit the Secretary of State to violate his oath of office. Skandalakis says what Trump said on that call can be interpreted in different ways, and when there is a question, prosecutors should give the defendant the benefit of the doubt that they were not behaving criminally. Unless, of course, direct evidence proves otherwise. The other main reason why Skandalakis says he will not be moving forward with this prosecution is that, in his view, this is a federal case. He believes that this should never have been prosecuted in the state court. Of course, there was a federal election interference case brought against Donald Trump by special counsel Jack Smith, But that case was also dropped after the Supreme Court presidential immunity ruling and after Trump won the 2024 election. So if you want to read this court filing from Skedalakis, I will email it out to you tonight in my Facts HQ email, so make sure you sign yourself up.
Folks, happy Thanksgiving. I just want to tell you that I'm thankful for all of you. I really am. And I want you to know that I'm really at heart an introvert. And so I really challenged myself to do this. And what I have received from all of you has blown me away. And even though the world looks like it's falling apart, and it looks like there are so many dastardly people because they all have the microphones, I just want you all to know that the people that I have connected with on this platform are beautiful people. And there are so many beautiful people out there. And if we look on the bright side, I think this nightmare that we've been on has made me re-examine my life, re-examine what I would have to give up if I had to leave this place, re-examine what I could lose. And boy, I love my life, and I am proud of myself for my life. And I hope that other people have done that too. I think that gives you sort of a license to fight for it, you know? I think all of us have had to re-examine what we're putting out in the world, how we're contributing to either making the nightmare worse or fixing it. And I think we've had to recognize that there are a lot of other people who feel the same way, who are scared, who don't know how to advocate for themselves. I think we've looked around and we've recognized that there are amazing people organizing, that the people are speaking up. You know, I keep coming back to the No Kings March. That is the vibe. That is the vibe that I want for my children's lives, that I want for my life. I want funky people showing up in chicken suits, marching along the street, just because they want to make sure people see their discontent with what's going on, just because they want to connect with the other people in funky chicken suits. And that is a beautiful connection to make. And the fact that we are wholeheartedly making those kinds of connections really makes me proud of us as a society too. And I think that's something that we should be proud of. And I think that's something that we should be thankful for on this Thanksgiving. Now listen, I hope all of you are not fighting with your relatives, but I hope that if you are, that you are standing proudly in your opinions, that you are speaking up, and that you are feeling confident that there are a lot of other people doing the same thing, and that we will keep doing it, and that eventually we will win back power. We will. We will save this country. We will. It will be largely damaged. It will be irreparably harmed in some ways, but you can't have so many beautiful people and not have them at some point rise up and bring things home again. Anywho, love y'all.